The outlook isn't bleak at offensive line after they got manhandled by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Super Bowl 55. Eric Fisher wasn't available to play, tore an Achilles tendon in the AFC Championship game. Mitchell Schwartz missed a lot of the season with back issues. On Thursday, Peter, both guys abruptly and surprisingly released in bang-bang fashion by the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, I've been waiting for a stunner, and I don't know that this qualifies, but I was surprised. This isn't one that we expected. I didn't expect both guys, much less either guy, to go. And there's the thank you. Teams do that now. Thank you for everything. Now please get the hell out, both Mitchell Schwartz and thank you very much. And now you are no longer employed by this organization. How surprised were you when it happened, Peter?
Very, but then you hear that Schwartz may be needing another surgery and his future could be uncertain. And, you know, you don't know a guy who's played as much as Eric Fisher has, who's got the cap hit that he has. I mean, how do you know what kind of physical condition he's going to be in coming back? And look, I know that Andy Reid has bigger fish to fry this offseason, but I know from years of Reid watching, and you ask everybody who ever worked with him, going back to Green Bay, but certainly starting in the late 90s when he was the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, going all the way through then, his trademark in the draft room, preparing for the draft is, you know, always, always, always have depth on the offensive line. Always be prepared on the offensive line. And this year, unfortunately for them, they get Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who opts out because he wants to continue his medical career, you know, and good for him because of COVID up in Canada. And then, you know, the third round pick who they drafted, who also opted out. So they got, honestly, the Chiefs, I'm not saying they got blindsided, but the Chiefs thought that they were going to have a little bit of a cushion on the offensive line this year, and it turns out by the end of the year they didn't. And Mike, let me just tell you one thing. 13 months ago, when the Kansas City Chiefs played in the Super Bowl against, you know, and really probably should have beaten the San Francisco 49ers, but when they played in that Super Bowl, I mean, obviously they did beat the Niners, excuse me, but when they played in that Super Bowl, all five offensive linemen in that Super Bowl, every one of them could be gone this year. Now, Duvernay-Tardif has said publicly he wants to return and play in this year. We'll see if that happens. But again, this just goes to show you, you know, in the old Jerry Glanville thing, NFL stands for not for long. This just goes to show you that, you know, in the NFL, you better be prepared for, you know, the emergency beyond the emergency. And so the Kansas City Chiefs, you talk about all the things they need this offseason, they better cut their cap a little bit tight so that they can afford, you know, a Kevin Zeitler or something like that in free agency this coming offseason.
And I think that's the key when you mention a Kevin Zeitler or whoever else is going to be available. The Chiefs projecting that they're going to have more reliable options on the offensive line than the guys they currently have. As players get cut by other teams, as free agents end up looking around wondering where the big money is, you eventually accept the fact that you're not going to get the big money. You're going to be lucky to have a job. Hey, how about go play for the Chiefs, play for Patrick Mahomes? It's easier to do a good job on the offensive line when you have a guy with Patrick Mahomes' mobility and elusiveness, which he has unlike most other quarterbacks currently in the NFL. So whether it's Zeitler, whether it's Nate Solder, if it doesn't work out with him as he comes back from opting out, and the Giants clearly aren't going to pay him $10 million this year, there will be options out there for the Chiefs to bring in and improve their offensive line. And this is an exercise. Rick Spielman told me this last week, the longtime GM of the Vikings. It is going to be a constant exercise. And he didn't put it quite this way, but he agreed with my characterization. As guys become available, you're going to look at who you have, and you're going to make some decisions to get rid of some of the guys you have and go out and get guys who are available. And I think the Chiefs doing this preemptively, instead of waiting for a guy to fall into their laps, they have the belief, possibly because they've been talking to people, during those conversations that aren't supposed to happen, that we know every team engages in. They have an idea who they're going to get. So they know who they're going to get. We move on from Fisher and Schwartz, and our plan will eventually reveal itself to anyone who's paying attention as to who's going to be blocking for Patrick Mahomes next year, Peter.
There's a couple of positions in free agency that, to me, are surprisingly robust. Okay? Doesn't really surprise me that you've got a lot of wide receivers because, quite honestly, there usually are good wide receivers most years in free agency. But the couple of things that really kind of interest me, like I think where the Kansas City Chiefs are going to need some help, there have been a lot of pretty good offensive linemen who have either been consigned to the scrap heap or, quite clearly have been cap cuts. We mentioned one of them in Kevin Zeitler of the Giants, the former Browns guard. And to me, you've also got a really good center, one of the best centers in football, Corey Linsley, is on the list. What about Joe Thuney? Joe Thuney right now, as you listen to what the Patriots might do, it looks as though they're going to basically sit on the sidelines and make him go get a really good offer. So there's a lot of players at the positions of need that the Chiefs, now they might have to compete for some of them, but who knows what a phone call from Patrick Mahomes might do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to see that this year. I firmly believe the opportunity for some of these teams to become super teams where they can go out and rent guys for a year at a low cost as they wait for the salary cap to rebuild itself next year once normalcy returns for the NFL. So you take a year, you chase a ring, and then you go get paid next year when things are back to where they were supposed to be before everything got turned upside down. Austin Ryder, the Chiefs center, also is expected to sign elsewhere in free agency. That could open the door for a Corey Linsley. All other things relevant like cap space and contract and who else may want Linsley. But this is going to be a strange, very strange free agency period. The stars still get paid. There just won't be as many who get paid. And we saw 10 franchise tags applied this week. Those tags don't get applied if their teams don't fear that there would be the kind of offer in free agency that they would be unable or unwilling to match. So stars will get paid, and there will be that parade of press conferences and announcements and teams reveling in the fact that they have some big-name player that joins the franchise. But other than those guys, there's going to be a lot of players that get squeezed. And that middle class of recognizable veteran name, those are the guys that are going to be bearing the cost, Peter, of the losses arising from the pandemic. Because all the players got fully compensated last year, even though the NFL's revenue reportedly was down $4 billion. Someone's got to pay the price for that on the player side, and it's going to be that middle class of veterans this year. And there's going to be a lot of guys available, and they're going to end up signing for a lot less money than they ever thought they were going to earn this year.
You said it a minute ago, Mike, when you said there will be scads of one-year contracts signed. Like, one of the guys who I look at, and one of the guys we're going to be talking about in hour number 2, is Bud Dupree. And you look at Bud Dupree, and he's coming off a year in which he exploded early in the year. He was great. Then he gets hurt, misses the rest of the season. So now nobody is really sure if they're going to get vintage Bud Dupree. They probably will. But he is the perfect candidate to a guy to play 2021 to sing for his supper and for his big long-term contract when the cap goes up again in 2022. I think there's going to be 30 of those guys. I mean, usually there's a few of them. But this year, I think there might be more of those than there will be of the C.J. Mosleys. The guys who, because only a few teams have the money to give out these $80 million contracts, which, surprise, don't really become $80 million contracts.
Yeah, it usually happens with the guy who suffers the catastrophic injury like a Bud Dupree. This year it's going to happen to guys who are perfectly healthy, who are just like, What the hell? I've been working all these years for my payday. Where is it? It's not going to happen this year for most of those guys. Let's take a break. When we return, where will the payday happen for Juju Smith-Schuster? And is there a chance it's going to happen for him in Pittsburgh? And by the way, will this be Patrick Mahomes' life next year? That would be difficult. Even with his elusiveness, I think that would be a difficult thing for him to pull off. Him and no one. He doesn't even have receivers. It's just 11-on-1. He'd probably get a first down eventually.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.